Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm so excited you're all here to meet the illustrious, brilliant, and beautiful soul, Margie Bissinger, who is one of the leading experts on osteoporosis, bone health, and just living a great life. I'm so privileged to work for her. I'm Margie's marketing director and good friend, Mary Agnes, and I am here to give the disclaimer. So first, can a couple of you put in the chat a thumbs up or a yes for we hear you and see you? Just a super quick little sound check. Yay! Thank you, Jules. Thank you, Lorena. Thank you, Jen. All right. So super fast before we get into the hundreds of questions that were sent in. This is honestly unbelievable. I had to go and upgrade my Zoom to accommodate all of you. I just wanted to say that Margie, as brilliant and amazing as she is not your doctor. So anything you learn here today is for education and to some degree entertainment. She's here to support you, but you have to take everything you learn back to your healthcare team, right? Because she doesn't have your genetics, she doesn't have your history, she doesn't have, all the Q&A that we need to treat patients either as coaches or doctors or health professionals. So right now you're just a name with a question. So you need to take everything you learn back to your own team. And I'm going to turn it over to Margie. She is going to rapid fire Q&A for an hour. And I just want to remind everyone, I'm going to share some links in the chat with you. You can ask questions, you can put them in the Q&A. We will not be answering real-time questions. Too many were sent in. We're just going to navigate the 500 questions sent in up till now. And I'll be putting some links in there. I'll come back on here and there when Margie needs me. I'll be in the background. Yes, there's a replay, so if you have to leave early. And I really hope everybody buys Margie's class. I paid my own money to join the class. I didn't even ask Margie for a discount. I'm on the team because at 55 years old, osteoporosis is looming. So I sent in my own question asking if it is inevitable. So I can't wait. And thank you all for being here. Margie, you take over. I'm going to go off screen.
Well, thanks so much, Mary Agnes, and thank you so much, everybody. I am just so excited to be here with all of you. And this was really helpful for me because I see that people you need guidance. Information isn't enough. And I know the summit had so much information and I know everyone's a bit overwhelmed and that's fine because we do things one step at a time. So anything, any little thing you get out of this is huge. And it's not as though osteoporosis just happens or it's not something that there's a quick fix. So the good news, as I said in the summit, I look at it as an opportunity. When you find out that you've lost bone or you want to work on your bone, everything else gets better as well. So it's a discovery, just so much can be done. So anyway, on that note, I'm going to go through, there's so many questions and I'm going to just start going through them and try to answer as many as I can. But I also realize how important this is. So for everybody in the program, I am going to have these at least once a month. So at least 6 of them, for part of the program, because I see that people really need more guidance. Okay, so let's get started. First question was, what is the difference between osteoporosis and osteopenia? And that's a good question because not everybody, we hear those terms. And basically, it's only dependent on your bone density test. So when you get a bone density test, they look at your score and they say, is it 0? If it's 0 to -1, it's considered normal. And that's standard deviations away from a 30-year-old. If it's -1 to -2.5, that's considered osteopenia, and more than -2.5, osteoporosis. So it's just random how they've picked that number. And, osteopenia is not obviously as much bone loss as osteoporosis. So that's all that means. It's all in the same, it's the same pathway that you may have osteopenia before osteoporosis. So that's where that comes from. And a lot of people, I guess Dr. Clinton Rubin talk was so popular because a lot of people, there were so many questions about the vibration plate and what do I use and what's safe. I think there were at least 10 questions on this. So I'm going to spend a little time talking about this because I think it's really important and I feel very strongly about this as well. So the thing with the vibration plate is that they did research at NASA. They worked with the astronauts, and because they're in space, they're not having the weight on them, and they lose bone. And so they wanted to see what could be done. So they figured out that there's electrical stimulus that you can apply, a type of vibration, and it's not a big stimulus. And what it does, they're called the mesenchymal stem cells, and they're in your bone marrow, and they can turn into either fat or bone. And they found with a certain stimulus, they can turn into bone. So that's sort of very exciting. And the best part of it is it doesn't have to be this intense stimulus. That's what they found. They found it could be low intensity, you know, and so that's quite exciting. So because of that though, a lot of people have much higher vibration units. And yes, it can help, in terms of your muscles, it's going to cause some type of a workout and it may help the bones as well. But the question is safety. And that's what's so important. And so there's it's called the ISO, the International Standards Organization, and they look at what's safe in the workplace, because there are people who are truck drivers or exposed to a lot of vibration. And it's called the ISO 2631. And they found, what level of vibration is safe and what's dangerous for people in the workplace. And the unit that I like is the Maradyne. It's a low intensity vibration unit, and that's the one I use. So a device like that has zero point 0.4 Gs, and Gs is the force, the gravitational force. What they found for this type of unit was you can stand on it, it'd be safe for 4 to 8 hours. And this unit, you only have to stand on 10 minutes. However, the problem is some of the other units, that you've heard about, they are 8, 10, 15 Gs, so very high forces. And what they've said is that's not safe. It's only safe for less than 16 seconds. So it's just a matter of safety. There have been some reports about, problems with retinas, and you don't want forces like that in your brain. That's why some of these higher intensity units, they tell you to bend your knees so that you don't hurt anything in your brain or your eyes. So my feeling, and I think this is the feeling of a lot of physical therapists, is that it's just not worth putting that risk if there is a danger. And so I'm always safety first. So that's why I like the Maradyne. The research has been very positive in terms of, the animal studies, and there's some research with humans as well, and they're continuing to do more studies. Personally, I've used the machine for 5 years now. And for me, my bone density has stayed stable. And what I've seen with my patients is similar, that they've been able to maintain, and some people even increase. So I think it's a good adjunct. It's not, that's not the only thing you should do, but I do think it's a good adjunct to an exercise, to everything else you're doing, the comprehensive exercise program in terms of, and as well as nutrition, stress reduction, and increasing happiness. So anyway, that's my feeling on the vibration platform. There is a link if you want the one that I like. A lot of people have asked me. And for the summit, I actually asked them to give a discount. So they gave a $200 discount. It's not a cheap machine. So it's not something, unfortunately, I wish it was less expensive, but it's something that you'll have for a long time. And several insurances or several, there's different where they pay for different types of medical equipment. I've had numerous people figure out ways they could get it financed. So anyway, that's the vibration plate. Okay, so, and someone asked me that they had emailed me about a different vibration plate that they saw advertised that was much cheaper. And in that email, the one that she asked me about actually said, this is not safe if you have osteoporosis. So absolutely not. You certainly, if something's saying it's not safe for osteoporosis, you do not want to do that. This low intensity vibration unit is, it has a frequency of 30 hertz. And as I said, zero point 0.4 Gs. So that's very safe. And they've done all sorts of research studies. And you always want to make sure you don't want to just go on something if it hasn't been studied for safety. Okay, so now we ask about best foods to eat for strong bones. So that could be like a 3-hour lecture. And in my program, every module, there's 6 modules, we go through food for stronger bones. But in a nutshell, if you're thinking, well, where do I start or what's important? You want to have food that has the minerals and all the nutrients that your bones need. So the very first place, if you're going to add something, I would add the leafy greens. I love collard greens. So they have 265 milligrams of calcium, and they also have magnesium and so many other nutrients that are helpful for our bones. I love kale. I like bok choy. That also, those are high calcium as well as other, there's just so many things when you're eating leafy greens. So that's my first place. Protein is very, very important. A lot of people think you don't need much protein or that too much protein is dangerous. But what the research has shown with the bones is that you do need protein. And so you need, not obviously not too much, but it's important to get protein because as a lot of people get older, they seem not to have enough in their diet. And so you want protein, you want lots of vegetables, eating from the rainbow. And, again, we can go into good fats. So it's basically just a very nutrient dense, healthy diet. And as I said, that could be the couple hours, but so that's just a quick overview of a healthy diet. And the most important thing, or one of the most important things I think, is get rid of the junk food. So processed food, sugar, it reduces your absorption of everything, of the magnesium, of the calcium. So that's really an anti-nutrient. So the more that you can clean up your diet, get all these great fruits and vegetables and nutrients, and then reduce the junk food and all the additives and all the things that are really, just reducing your absorption of the good foods is going to make a big difference. Okay, so now we go to someone asked, does walking with about 7 pounds of weight in a backpack, is that considered weight bearing exercise? Well, here's the thing. Weight bearing is anything where you're doing something against gravity. So just walking is weight bearing as well. Now, someone may think, oh, okay, well, if that's good, let me put 7 pounds in the backpack and that will make it even better. The problem with that is that alignment is absolutely essential. And I can't stress this enough because as a physical therapist, for over 35 years, I've been working as a physical therapist. I have seen when people are out of alignment, it doesn't put the right forces on your joints. You can have all sorts of really damaging forces that are being destructive to your joints and not helping at all. So if you're in the backpack, putting 7 pounds on, unless you're really having good posture, I don't see that as really beneficial. Yes, you're getting more forces, but I think the forces are better to be used when you're doing resistance training instead of when you're doing endurance exercises, because you're not really going to be gaining that much. What they found with walking is that it's good and it's definitely a wonderful thing. But a lot of people think, oh, I'll just walk miles and miles all day, and that will be my bone strengthening program. But they haven't found that. They haven't found that that's enough stimulus. Yes, it's great and it's good for cardiovascular. And they have found that people who do walk, have less falls and fractures. So that's great. But if you're really trying to do a bone building program, you really want to do separate strength training, not as an endurance exercise. And so I would say I would just really do the walking. It could be up different hills and different surfaces. And I would not carry that's just my personal opinion. You may have other people, theoretically, you're putting more forces on your joints. You could help, but I would rather use the weights separately, do a very good strength training program, and then separately do a weight bearing program. Okay, let's see. Now, so someone asked me, looking forward to hearing more about supplements and exercise. Does your program adapt to those in their 80s as well as those in their 50s? I'm in my 80s and I'm curious how bone can be strengthened in 80-year-olds. That is such a good question. And I'm so happy you asked that because I am always so amazed with people who are in their 80s and it's never too late. That's the best news. It's never too early, really, and it's never too late to improve your bones. And so it doesn't, yes, you can have improvements in your 80s, first of all, and it's amazing. And even if you can't improve your strength, the if you can't improve your strength, the just improving your balance is so great, at any age, because what we're really want to reduce is falls and fractures. So at any age, doing balance exercises, Tai Chi, anything can make a big improvement, but also strength. You can improve your strength at any age. It's never too late. And I'm just always amazed when I see 80-year-olds, in classes. In New Jersey, where I live, we have this program, Project Healthy Bones. It's a free program and I help consult on it. It's a statewide program, and people all ages are exercising, and it's just amazing. I see people in their 80s and they're helping me move furniture. So yes, everything can. It's never too late, and by improving your diet, reducing stress, and doing the exercises, whatever you can do can make a very big difference. And in my program, yes, we go over all of those things so that you can help figure out what's best for you. But again, it's very important. This is an individualized type of thing. So I do feel it is important to be working with a healthcare practitioner also overseeing what's going on. Okay, so let's continue. And someone asked me, oh, would you consider making a DVD so people could use for home practice? I find it easier when I'm a teacher, following a teacher. And so the thing is, everyone has their strong points, and I can show people exercises. I've done that, but I'm not the greatest leading a class exercise instructor. But the person I have a couple of people, but my favorite classes are Dr. Sherry Betts, and she was on the summit, and she is incredible. And she has an entire library plus live classes. So that's the person I always recommend if you want to do, and she has DVDs as well. If you want to do, look for really good DVDs, and she has beginner programs and an intermediate program, just everything. But her library is amazing. She has safe yoga, safe Pilates, as well as I said, she has, live classes on a regular basis. And so anyone who purchased the program as a bonus gift, she's giving a free week of her program. But I have it, we can put that in the chat, the link for her. And it was in, the link to how to get the free week, and the code and all that was in the purchase bonus gifts. But anyway, yeah, so Sherry is the person I recommend in terms of the DVDs. Okay. Oh, another great question is, how do you, oh, let's see, wait, I've missed this one. Okay, this is a good one too. That would like info on how safely to maintain a weightlifting, muscle building exercise program in your 60s when you have osteoporosis. I've been active and have exercised all my life, but I'm now concerned, how can I maintain that strength and stay safe? This is also something I feel strongly about. The best thing anybody can do is go see a physical therapist, at least for one visit. And usually this is covered by insurance, because at least they can look at you and see what areas might be tight, just how you're doing everything. I mean, that's the very best way, if you can at least see a physical therapist, just even to get started. But and also because you want to challenge yourself. That's what they found. That's what the research has found. The research has found is that what really increases bone is resistance training, strength training, and higher impact if you can tolerate it. So this is where I don't really think it's, you don't want to start doing these high impact exercises yourself. That's why it's really great to at least initially start with the physical therapist and let them help you and figure out where you're at, how you can increase the resistance in a safe way, maintaining good posture and body mechanics. And so a lot of people just, a lot of times the doctor doesn't think to ask, or to order physical therapy. It's not that they don't think you need it. They just don't realize, they may just say, and this is what I see typically, they may just say, okay, go walk or do some type of weight bearing exercise. And it's not that they just don't know all the details that the physical therapists who work with us know on what really builds bone. So again, because you want to do the high intensity, what you can safely. So if you can see a physical therapist, if not, at least work in a class, where they're taught by a physical therapist or a personal trainer who's really had experience with osteoporosis. And the next question I've gotten a lot is, well, where do I find those people? And so I have the links also, and somewhere that I've written them down. that Mary Agnes can give you, that the American Physical Therapy Association, there's a geriatric section, and there are people who've been trained and who have the certification. So that's a very good place to start, as well as Sherry Betts has trained people, and she has a list of people who've gone through her program. And there's something called Bone Fit from Canada, and people who are Bone Fit trained as well. So there's lots of great ways. And also see who your insurance covers. This is what I always tell everybody. And then call up, you can call those physical therapy practices and say, is there anyone who specializes in osteoporosis? So that's another way. And usually, they're honest with you. They're not going to make that up. And so you don't want to work with just any physical therapist. You want to work with someone who has that training. It will make a big difference. Okay, let's continue. So now someone asks about how did you overcome, this is a good question. How did you overcome, they're asking me, the inevitable and debilitating bone loss that comes from having celiac, or how do you overcome for many years? And that's a very good point, because a lot of people didn't even realize they had celiac disease. And what problems with celiac disease is that you're not absorbing your nutrients. And it has a huge, huge effect on bone density, and the quality of your bones. And so the thing is, whenever you find out, great. And I really believe everybody should get tested, not just for celiac, but for gluten, because this is something I see all the time. And any type of gluten sensitivity can also really wreak havoc on your bones. And it's an underlying root cause that needs to be addressed if you're really going to make a big difference. And so basically, whenever you find out, you will totally eliminate gluten. And then otherwise, if you have gut issues, there's all sorts of protocols that can be done too. But then the whole time, the exercise, stress reduction, and really start getting all the nutrients and supplements as well. So I think wherever you're at with that, it can get better. There's one woman didn't have celiac; she had gluten. She didn't even know she had gluten issues, but she had osteoporosis. And basically, her friend went gluten free. And I had met her after this, and she said she was going to try it. Well, and she had been on drugs. She had been on Fosmex. She'd been on things, and nothing was really helping. A year later, not only did her bone density significantly increase when she got gluten free, but also she no longer had arthritis. So there's lots of benefits from that. There's a huge relationship. And the test that I personally like, and I know a lot of the people on the summit, Dr. Tom O'Brien, who's truly the gluten expert of the world, I think, who's helped teach me so much, is the wheat zoomer. So that's a test. It's by Vibrant America. I think that's a very good test. Okay, moving on. Are weighted vests beneficial? And that's a good question. And there's difference of opinions here. And my feeling on weighted vests for walking is, and I know Sherry Betts feels the same way, is that walking is an endurance activity. So there's really no reason to put the forces. It's not going to make a big difference when you're doing a long time endurance activity. For strength training, they found it's lower reps. It's like 10 repetitions where you're working somewhat hard. That's what's building strength. So to add the weighted vest when you're walking, I would say I wouldn't do that. I don't think that's a good idea. And I know Sherry Betts agreed with me, as well as a lot of other physical therapists, because what happens is it sort of throws off your walking. You're wearing the vest and you're getting more forces on your knees, and they're not positive forces. So I would say no for that. If you're wearing it during just brief strength training sessions, that could be okay, as long as it's comfortable, as long as it's not bothering your shoulders. But I personally am not a believer in wearing it while you're walking. Someone asked, I'm interested in learning how to use bone markers when monitoring drugs for osteoporosis. Bone markers, I'm a big believer in. They're called the NTX, the CTX. And what happens is in normal bone, we don't have the same bone that we're born with. Like every 10 years, like 7 to 10 years, we get a whole new skeleton. So the normal process is we lose a little bone. That's where the osteoclast can dig in. And then the osteoblasts put new bone on. So we lose some and then it's replaced. And so that your bone stays fresh and healthy. And so, but if you're losing more bone than is being replaced, that's going to show up when we're losing the bone. That's going to show up in these bone markers. So you can see, are you actively losing bone? So they're very, very helpful to see if you are on medication and is something reducing the bone turnover, because that's sort of one of the mechanisms of some of the medications, that they stop the bone turnover. They stop the osteoclast. And so it can help. And I think that's a good test, because you can see, again, are you actively losing bone? And then you can see, a couple months later, unlike the DEXA, where you won't do it, more than a year in between, the least amount of time. A lot of people, don't even do, more than 2 years or even more. But this test, you can do it on a more frequent basis, even every couple months, and see what's going on. So I'm a big believer in that. Okay, now, someone asked, can I still grow bone at 50? Well, you have your peak bone at 30. So you're not really going to actively be making more bone, but studies, when people have done, this type of exercise training, they have been able to increase their bone density slightly. But even maintaining is good. Even maintaining is a good thing as well. And I think the other thing that's just not talked about so much is, everyone is so concerned on that bone density value. And the problem is that's only measuring one thing. It's just measuring the strength. It's not measuring the quality. So you can have two bones with the same bone density, and one person will fall and fracture, and the other person is like flexible. Their bones, the quality is so much better. And so what I recommend for that is something called a trabecular bone score. And so not every place has this, but when you get your DEXA, if the bone density, it's a software that they use, and it actually looks at bone quality. So it gives you so much more information, so you can see the density plus the quality. And I don't think I put a link in here, but if you go to, I guess you can just put TBS in, and you can, and where, and they have, I think it's on the American Bone. I can't think now where exactly that was, but basically you can find that if you just put TBS. It will show you where places have it near you. So I think it's something, if you have that opportunity to do it, always the conflict is you want to use the same machine, and because it's not that accurate. So you want to always use the same machine that you used before if you can. And so if that doesn't have the trabecular bone score, then you have to weigh which one's more important. But just something to know. Okay, so let's continue. So we did that. And okay, let's go back to here. Okay, I would like to know, this question I'm really happy about. I would like to know if forward bending in yoga is bad for your bones. And the answer is, if you have osteoporosis, you do not want to do forward bending with yoga. And you don't want to do forward bending at all. And the reason that is, let's see, I have my spine here. I don't have, anyway, the reason is, oh, here it is. I knew I had my spine here. Okay. The reason is that if we're looking at the spine, the fractures happen in the front of the spine. So this is the back, where you would feel the back of the spine, and this is the front of the spine. And what happens is, this is where the fractures happen. They happen in the front, not the back. So what they found with forward bending, you can see when that this but here is osteoporosis, which is like a wedge fracture, and this is where the fractures occur. And so in the front of the vertebrae. So when you see this and you bring it more forward, all the forces are happening right where all the forces are happening right in the front of the vertebrae. So by bending this forward, we're compressing an already weakened area. So forward bending, there was a study done at the Mayo Clinic, and they looked at people who had osteoporosis over a 6-year period of time. And they found that people only doing forward bending had an 89% fracture rate, versus people who were just doing backward bending, strengthening their back muscles, had a 16% fracture rate. So they've never repeated this, but the rounding puts forces on an already weakened area of the spine that's most susceptible to fracture. So not that you can't do yoga, and you absolutely can. And I have a link that we're going to put in the chat on the Dr. Sherry Betts really created these 2 handouts that are amazing on safe yoga and safe Pilates. And so it's not that you can't do them, but you do neutral postures, you do extension postures, you avoid the rounding. And the other thing to avoid is the extremes. So extreme rotation and extreme side bending. So just don't go all the way to the end. And overpressure. Some of the teachers want to put overpressure. So those handouts are really excellent and they go into that in more detail. But I see this all the time. I'll be at senior centers or at the gym and people are doing all sorts of rounding. And so the answer to that is no. And I've sent that article to so many yoga instructors because they've heard me speak and they're like, what are you talking about? But again, you can do everything. It's just making some modifications so that you are safe. And someone says, I'm 78 with severe brittle bones. What can I do? I'm afraid of falling. The best thing you can do is balance exercises. As we age, as we get older, if we don't use it, we lose it, and our balance significantly deteriorates. But the best news is that this is something you can do every day, and it's not hard, and we can even improve our balance. So the best thing you can do is start working on your balance and doing things like Tai Chi and the best thing you can do is work on your balance. So doing things like Tai Chi and weight shifting. And there's all sorts of exercises. In the summit, actually, Joan Pagano did exercises. And in my program, I have all sorts of balance exercises as well in Tai Chi. But that's one of my favorites, Tai Chi. But just doing things, even standing on one foot if you can, or even walking with one foot in front of the other in a more narrow base of support. So whatever types of balance you can do and start slow is going to make a huge difference. And then you'll feel more sturdy on your feet. The program that I did, that I'm involved with in New Jersey, we teach Tai Chi to everyone, a little, not a lot, just like some weight shifting. And numerous people have said, I was walking on this curve and I hit it, but I had my Tai Chi and I was able to not fall. So I think that there's a tremendous amount you can do, and that will make you feel sturdy on your feet so that you won't fall, and it can make a huge difference. Okay, so let's continue. Here we go. We did this already. Sorry, let me get back. I'm just going to. Okay. So someone asks, vibration plates are expensive. What do experts think about mini trampolines for those with osteoporosis or jumping rope? So jumping has been shown to increase bone density. Now it depends what's the state of your bones. Now, anyone, young people, get your kids, your grandchildren, everybody should be, jumping's fantastic because you're getting forces on the bones and the bones respond to the forces placed upon them. So absolutely jumping, and jumping rope, again, it depends. It really depends. And this is where a physical therapist comes in on your bone density to if jumping rope is good for you and what your activity level is. You can always do things like I have people do something called pump that I know Robin Eisen showed in the during the summit, where you just go a little bit in a good posture, go up on your toes and just go very gently down on your heels. So it's a variation. It's not as intense as jumping rope, but you're getting the forces on the bones. Now, mini trampolines. Now I have one and I love it. I love it. I feel so good, and it stimulates the lymph flow, and there's a lot of benefits from it. And sure, it's good for your muscles. Whether or not it helps bone density, we really don't know because it's not that much impact. Impact is what affects the bones. So there haven't been studies showing that it increases bone density, but I think it's a good thing. There's nothing good thing as long as you're stable, and if someone to hold on to. You certainly don't want to put yourself in a risky situation where you could fall off the mini trampoline. So it depends on, your stability, but for a person who is stable and can do it, there's certainly nothing bad about it. How much it will actually increase your bone density per se, we really don't know. Okay, let me continue here. Oops. Oh, I see. Let me hang on one second. Okay. We did forward bending. Um, okay, we talked about the NTX. I think they're very good. And where does one begin? That's such a very good question. And I think that's what happens with something like the summit. There's so much information, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. I'm stressed out. Ah, where do I start? And that's sort of why I have a program and a community and a Facebook group, because it's very hard to do it on your own and you really need guidance. And so where you start can be many different places. You can start with a program like what I have. You can start with seeing, a functional medicine doctor if you want to do more testing. There's many places to start. And I think the most important thing though is mindset. Is mindset just not to think I have to do everything right at once. That okay, I'll do it in my own time and I'll gradually get there. Because there's nothing, and I really feel this way, and I think a lot of I teach a happiness program as well. And overwhelm is the absolute enemy to happiness. So we certainly don't want overwhelm. So it's just gradually adopting these amazing habits that whatever's good for your bones is good for everything else. So it's starting one step at a time. If you feel you want support, there's, you can come join the program and you'll get support. And you can also work with people one-on-one. You can work with someone who can really guide. I mean, I do that as well, very limited the amount of people I see one-on-one, but there are, and I can also help you with that, figure out the right person to see, or who, what type of practitioner would be best for your unique situation. Because again, it's confusing, and you really do want the support. You want the support of a community. You want the support of people who can help you and guide you. Okay, so now let's go to first. Thank you for hosting this. Oh, that was the person about the platform. We already talked about that. And what hip exercises to build strength? Lots of good hip exercises. Squatting's my favorite. It's just, I love squatting. Again, for people who haven't done that, I always have people start in a chair and just getting out of a chair first.